Какая глупая девчонка.
Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to Paws On Animation and our first ever Paws On YouTube video. We're going to be covering other apps that are available for free that you don't have to pay for, like Netflix and Crunchyroll and so forth. And we want to be able to share with you movies that are on and series that are on those platforms that we think you should check out as well.
Right.
So we'll have YouTube, Tubi, Zumo, Freevee, and
Probably Peacock or something.
yes. So stay tuned. This is the first ever.
Yes. And today, we're covering an animated movie called Ginger's Tale.
Now, this movie might be obscure, but this movie was more Disney than Disney.
Ah!
And it's become an underrated gem for us. It's actually a Russian film we found online on YouTube that's based on a fairy tale called The Tinderbox. And we'll tell you more about that in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And what makes it very special is that this project is meant to be in the style and a love letter to classic Disney films, and they succeeded.
Yes.
But
Before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, and click notifications and future podcasts and multiple pause videos.
thank you so much for joining us today, subscribing, sharing our videos, commenting, all the things you do. We appreciate you so much.
Yes.
Yes, Rascal actually found this on demand
Yes.
and then learned that it was not only on YouTube but also on Hulu.
Right.
We watched it on Hulu, but you can see it for free on YouTube.
Yes, full things available. And I just kind of passed by while looking for other films because we've gotten to a point where we've watched so many movies, especially newer ones, that we were actually running low on film. So we started finding more independent films or obscure movies from other countries that they have available for free, and said, okay, let's see if we find some more gems here. Ginger's Tale came up, and I thought, well, it's a 2D movie you don't see a lot of now, and it was made in 2020, which was a surprise. So it's okay, let's just go and try it. And when we started watching it, the first thing you notice is like, it's almost like you're watching some type of Disney movie, and that's how we end up uncovering all
when
this.
Disney made great movies.
Yes.
So, for those of you who aren't familiar, as we mentioned, it's a 2020 Russian animated musical fantasy film written and directed by Konstantin Shekin, Katarina Ilyina, and Ekaterina Mikhailovia. And there were also various script writers. Now, this movie came out in theaters originally in June of 2020 in Annecy, and in February of 2021 in Russia. Has a runtime of 92 minutes. There was I think it's rubles if I'm not mistaken, 21.6 million, but it earned only $310,000 at the box office, and we're going to tell you why in a minute.
Okay.
But as we mentioned, it's based on a Danish fairy tale called The Tinderbox that originally came out in 1835.
And surprisingly by Hans Christian Andersen.
Yes. And there have been several versions done on this.
Really? Now that I didn't know. Because
In 1946, there was a Danish feature film. In 1959, there was also a feature film. In 1985, there was a puppet tune adaptation. In 2007, it was adapted into a 30-minute ballet with sets and costumes.
Okay.
And then Eyes of Dogs is a version of the Tinderbox that came out in 2013. And Ginger's Tale, as we know, in 2020. And in the 1950s, Sir Michael Redgrave made a recording called Tales of Hans Christian Andersen.
Yeah.
In which he reached the Tinderbox. Last but not least, there was a video game based on it.
What?
In 1985 by Gremlin Graphics. Released as a children's adventure game titled Tinderbox.
Wow, okay. There's so much more to learn here.
And all the profits went to the Ethiopian Famine Relief Fund through SOFHAB.
Wow, cool.
So this story has a big history. And as usual, Rascal was familiar with it. And who wrote it? Before me.
Right. But outside of that, this movie is something I had never heard of, didn't know it existed. It's just literally something that came up on demand for free. And I guess because it's not really well known here in the US, they say, hey, you can watch it whenever you want. And when you're watching the movie, the first thing you kind of think of is, okay, how bad is this movie gonna be? How botched is it? Because sometimes we find movies that are just terrible, regardless of where they're from. But the surprising part about Ginger's Tale is that while we've seen a lot of movies where they try to leech off Disney and copy and not really knowing what they're doing, they're just trying to make a knockoff. When you watch the movie, they genuinely wanted to make a Disney-esque movie in their own way. And you could tell it was not a perfect film, but it had a lot of effort put into it to make it as much as Disney as they could.
Now, the studio that produced this was their animation studio. And unfortunately, this was their last animated movie. Because at the same time this released, Disney decided to release Soul. And Soul tore it up at the box office. And they lost so much money. Here's the great thing about this movie, that if you haven't seen it, you need to watch it. It reminds you so much of the Disney movies from the 90s and the 2000s and the 2010s, down to the animation, which is excellent. And they got awards, and critics love the movie as well as the animation. For the voice acting guy, the people who actually did the VAs, and we'll give them credit a little later, all were speaking perfect English, and you never would have known that any of them were Russian.
Yes.
So as Rascal said, they really cared about putting their heart into it. They had musical numbers, but the songs were good.
Yes.
They weren't irritating. They weren't too long.
And they were going on every 5 minutes.
And they did not have special artists or singers singing the songs. The performers themselves did it, and they did a really good job.
Yeah.
And last but not least, there is a story in here with a message. And unlike the Disney movies now, but of the ones past, there is a happy ending.
Right. And don't forget, the villain actually has a villain song.
Yes.
It's not long, but it's like, okay, we know she's the villain.
Yes, it's another female, just in case you were wondering.
And as you're watching it, you know how when you watch some of the slightly newer Disney movies, you could tell when they put Easter eggs and references to their past films. And it did better in that department, better than what Wish and some other movies did, now made recently, where they had some good shout outs to the past Disney films, and you knew they were parodying those types of caricatures. Like you had, of course, the prince who didn't look like a prince, but you knew he would be. You had the animal sidekick for the princess. You had the evil queen and the henchman that's, you know, goofball. You had the best friends. You had the musical numbers. You had your chase scenes. You even had visual references where you could tell they slightly were referencing Disney things.
And you had a likable main character.
Yes.
Two things that stand out. It doesn't take place in modern day. It takes place in a medieval town.
Yeah.
Where a lonely queen has lived since time immemorial.
Okay.
She has her servant called
Oops.
And when you hear his name, you'll know why.
Right.
Another thing is this movie, and believe it or not, you hear Russia and you think that it's going to be all one type of character. There was a diverse character.
Yes, believe it or not.
In this movie. Not just one standout, but within the crowds and living in the towns and everywhere.
Yeah.
What we questioned is, how could this company get so much right that Disney gets wrong now? And Disney was the epitome of how to make an animated movie.
Exactly. And it was so bizarre watching this, where it was actually entertaining. Yes, they had a few little mistakes here and there, but they weren't constant. They weren't really big errors. Maybe at the most you had a character that was not here and then suddenly appeared, and that was really it. But as you were watching it, you were having fun.
Yes.
And like you said, the characters were likable. No one was so incompetent where it was irritating. Even the one called Oops had a brain.
Yes.
The friends you knew were supposed to be like the dwarves, and they were better than the teens. I'm sorry, they were. And they had ones that were silly, or they were goofy, or they were comic relief. But the hilarious part about it all is that they weren't idiots, and you couldn't believe it when you were watching it.
So let's let you know what the movie itself is about.
Yeah.
And it talks about the challenges of Ginger, the main character, and she's a faithful friend of a craftsman named Potter. And one day he finds a magical stone of fire artifact that can grant the ability to turn stones into treasure. And he found it because the queen actually had it, and it got away from her.
Yes. And it's always one of those by chance type stories where things happen and like the audience is aware that the villain's after the hero, but the hero has no clue because they are aware of the queen, but they don't know that she's evil. Yes, right. Go figure. And when the stone comes about, they think it kind of comes out of nowhere. And what's interesting is that it doesn't just appear and do nothing. When they make the spark with it, these dogs with armor come out, and it has like copper and gold and silver and different materials that when it's done right, you actually get money out of it. And the more that he uses the stones, you could tell, you had noticed that he looked older.
Yes.
He was becoming more snarky. He was had more attitude. He was uppity, saying he had the best of everything.
Unlikable.
Right. And there was even a scene where they did a clever reference to Mickey's Christmas Carol when he had the gold and he was trying to keep it for himself, and you could tell it was a reference to Scrooge.
Yes, and they did that multiple times very well. Better than Wish. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
And the movie also was a coverage of overcoming greed and friendship, because due to friendship of the townspeople,
right,
he was able to have this movie had a happy ending. He was able to overcome the things the stone made him do.
Right.
So another thing that stood out is that the drawing style was great, and again, it looked like Disney. It looked so much like Disney, you would have thought it was a Disney movie done in Russia.
Yes.
It was beautifully animated, just bright colors and shades, and it had rich tapestry of all this going on. And again, when you're watching, you can't help thinking, Disney, why aren't you doing this anymore?
All these stories to tell.
It's beautiful and it's fun, and it was almost, no, I'm gonna say this, it was a perfect foreign film that was a Disney tribute. It was perfect
somehow.
as you could get, as close as you could get being classic Disney.
Yes, absolutely. And it's really a shame that you don't hear anybody talk about it here. We haven't seen reviews of it. And again, just find this out of nowhere. And I'm going to say this. We were expecting it to be lame. We were expecting it to be something that was just, oh, here we go. They're trying to copy Disney. They're trying to make a knockoff. They're trying to do this. There's sucky. And the further on we got into, the more we were enjoying it. It was like, no, they're earnestly trying to make a Disney-esque film. And it's not out of, we're trying to be Disney. This is, we love Disney. Here's what we could do if we made a Disney movie.
You know how good it is? We left it in our watch list to watch it again.
Yes.
It is that good. And you are missing out on seeing the type of movies you love by not watching this movie.
Right.
Unfortunately, the production company went bankrupt.
Yeah.
And we can't expect to see any more of these movies.
Unfortunately.
I'm so grateful we have this to appreciate. And if any of them happen to hear this podcast or see the review, you did one heck of a job.
Yes.
And we're so sorry that you can't continue doing what you love and seeing the love you put into it. And maybe we will cross our fingers, someone will see this movie and go, hey, they need to be put back into production.
Yes.
And you come back, because you absolutely positively deserve every blessing.
Yes.
That being said, we'll now quickly give a shout out to the voice actors.
Yes.
We have Natalia Tereshkova as Ginger, Peter Kolrisky as Potter, Irina Yakovleva as the Queen, Sergei Buranov as Oops.
These are all real names.
As characters that are simply named Firefighter Padlock, Allshoe, Archivist Dr. Mistress Cat and Zika. We have, in respective order, Edgar Zapashny, Alexander Oleshko, Alexei Elistratov, Yuri Ashkarov, Nikita Prokhorovsky, Vasily Mishkanenko, Lyudmila Grilova, and Ole Yeshinin.
Wow.
I hope I did well, guys.
Hopefully, yes.
But again, if you have not seen this movie, you need to. Again, it won awards, got high praise, and it also received accolades from the Shanghai International Film Festival.
Oh my gosh, wow.
As well as in California at the ASIFA Hollywood Film Society.
Wow.
So they had a bright future, but unfortunately, the way things were timed, going up against Soul, which from what I understand really disappointed a lot of people. We haven't seen it yet and don't know if we plan on seeing it. It could have become a contender, not against Disney, but just a contender in having movies that you love.
And what you want to see again.
Exactly. And not disappointing viewers. So if by chance you've seen Ginger's Tale, let us know in the comments. Did you love it as much as we did? Did you think it was okay? Would you love to see it? Let us know what you think. And if you haven't, it's available on Hulu.
Yep.
If you subscribe, and on YouTube for free.
Yes, and we'll put a link in the description so you can see it immediately after.
Absolutely. We recommend all of you that love classic Disney, go watch it, come back and tell us what you think. You will not be disappointed.
And if you haven't already, subscribe for updates and weekly videos for your anime series, anime shows, all things animation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today for the first of many free app reviews for you.
Yes.
Thank you for subscribing, sharing our videos, commenting, all those good things, and helping us on our journey to reach over 2,000 subscribers this year.
Yes.
As always,
you are special. Thank you so much for watching. Rascal Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainment.
Have a toontastic day.
Peace.